For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Lauber, and today I'm joined by Inez Annie Cyrus. She's a human rights activist and now an author as well. How are you doing this morning, Annie?
Fantastic. It has been a great Monday morning, though it's Wednesday on the calendar. It feels like Monday.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And it really is like nonstop. There's so much happening 7 days a week anymore. There really is no break, no time off. Even if there's a day where one of us isn't broadcasting or producing a show, you're still watching the headlines, watching as news stories unfold and develop. And on so many fronts, too. It's not like we're all following one thing right now. There's just so much going on. It never ends. It is an endless news cycle.
Yes, I don't remember the last time I actually published a Substack on both Saturday and Sunday. This last weekend was I think it was the first time that I had to actually write even Saturday and Sunday because I wasn't about to get on air. So I just did Substacks. I'm like, yeah, we got to cover this and we got to cover this. Now we got to cover that. It's a never ending news cycle. Yes. But you know what, Marco, if other media outlets would tell the truth, it would be a lot easier for us because it's we report and then we have to come out and counter the lies and then counter their narrative. And it's just like the never ending feels never ending because there's so much lies and narrative to counter that it's like dabble the work.
Exactly. Like I can understand if like a story is breaking live, there being a little bit of fog of war and having to go back and correct things, but it is mostly intentional. It is to build and shift a narrative that is largely untrue a lot of the time. And that's the problem. Like the mainstream media is just a mouthpiece. They are not there for the benefit of the people. They are not there to put the facts out there so you can make up your own mind. They are out there to influence opinion in one direction or another. They are dishonest, and they're, I think, one of the main problems, something that's destroying our country right now. But speaking of Substack, I want to get into your article here before we get into the book. This is your most recent post up on Substack, excuse me, the Terror Tower in Manhattan, Fifth Avenue skyscraper tied to Iran. What is this all about?
So, if you remember a while ago, I came on your show to cover what we can make up the 666 Fifth Avenue building of Jared Kushner. So yesterday, no, day before, yes, I don't even know what today is. Yes, Monday, I come across this report, not on American media. And I find it inside Radio Farda, which is an Iranian outlet, not tied to Iran, Iranian opposition outlet.
Yes.
And I look, I'm like, oh, wait, the 650 Fifth Avenue is now completed. I was aware of the building. I was aware of the lawsuit, but I don't know where it's going. So brief story of it. There is a building, 650 Fifth Avenue, Manhattan, that has been there, of course, for a long time. But since the revolution, 1979, that building belonged to an Iranian company tied to the revolutionary people. And since 79, there was a, legal framework, paperwork, whatever, long story. 1979, I want you to come to me to 2008, Michael. In 2008, to one of my surprises under Obama, finally, DOJ is like, okay, we need to start the investigation. So they filed the charges. Fast forward, all of fast forward. In 2017, finally, they get the judgment that the owners of this building are making millions of dollars a year under cover of charity, and they're sending this money where? You guessed it, IRGC and the proxies to commit terrorism.
Of course.
And then in 2019, finally, there's the issue of seize of the building or the assets. And then now last week, finally, the victims, listen to this to your audience, the victims who were affected by the operation of the owners of 650 Fifth Avenue finally were compensated from the money that was seized from the building as an asset. Now, I wrote about this for a few reasons, especially because the book is out now. Like, when you look at it, Michael, 1979 until last week, there shouldn't be victims because there shouldn't be an investigation, because there shouldn't be an ownership of this building. It shouldn't be.
No. I mean, how did it possibly take them 29 years to even start an investigation? I can understand 2-3 months. It's got to be brought to somebody's attention at the DOJ. Somebody's got to move forward with the paperwork. 2-3 months after the revolution, that's acceptable. 29 years, not so much. And then to only recently compensate any of the victims. Again, how does this stuff happen? Yeah, how does this stuff happen?
That's exactly why yours truly was fed up and wrote the book, The Architecture of Jihad, because on my Substack, I hit at it very briefly. You might think, another proxy, another front for IRGC. No, our government had direct ties between this organization that owned the building, direct ties from them, and Bank Melli of Iran, which has been designated as the operator for funding proxies and IRGC inside Iran. They had the direct ties, but nobody wanted to be Islamophobe. Therefore, they use our own system to commit not 1, not 2, not 3, but 5 different jihad in one building. Michael, 5 jihad in one building. Funding the original jihad, which is killing people. Financial jihad, which is funding behind it, civilization jihad, because they were renting this building. The units were being rented to American businesses, making American money.
Yeah. Which then their rent and everything else getting laundered back to fund terrorism here and around the world. And again, we just turn a blind eye to it until it's too late. And then when the story finally comes out, they're like, oops, sorry, somehow we missed this for, almost 5 decades.
Exactly. And again, it's like, okay, in my Substack, I mentioned, I'm like, you might, and here's the problem. Here's where problem gets bigger, because a lot of people are like, yay, victims were compensated. Really? You call that a win? That ain't a win. That's a delayed response. There shouldn't be victims to be compensated. This should have been handled. The discovery about this building happened right around the time that we're pretty much freezing all assets that belongs to Iran. This one building somehow gets away. And then 47 years later, we're like, look, we got justice for victims. Well, there shouldn't be victims. No, don't celebrate. Like, DOJ is making this huge deal out of it. Like, look what we did. You failed. That's what you did. I think it's $230 million that was seized. And if I'm recalling correctly, about 129 or 119 million has already been distributed. First of all, can you imagine how much money they made for this much money to be seized? Secondly, how many victims were facing this terrorism that 190 million was distributed between them? Involving with kidnapping cases, victims of kidnapping, their loved ones were kidnapped by IRGC or Hamas or Hezbollah or Houthis. death, torture, buildings blown up. These are the cases. And funny enough, I dig as much as I could. There is no specific details about any of the cases, just a generic explanation. I
Of
want to know
course.
how many cases are we facing? How many of these torture, murder, kidnapping was involved with this one building in South Manhattan?
Yeah. And who made the decision not to do anything about it until now?
I was shocked that under Obama, the investigation actually officially started. I'll be honest with you. I was very shocked.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if it was just unavoidable they start something because of the money laundering aspect of it and it going through, international routes to get back to Iran. They may have had no choice but to look into it because of the number of violations or it becoming too obvious, or if they didn't do something about it, it turning into a scandal. I mean, I can't see that they, especially Obama, would investigate this because they wanted to. It was probably to the point where they couldn't look away or there would be political consequences.
Yeah, sorry. I'm looking at the Substack comments. And first of all, we're very glad you joined us, Lisa. And she's going to put us in her pocket while she goes to walk the dog. So good. We're going to try not to put too much graphic for you to miss. And go
Yeah.
away. I'm glad you have started reading the book because he's putting up some of the information from the book. Yes, that's what we're facing.
Yeah.
I'm like, the timing, Michael. I'm like, really? Like I know we're not to you, but sometimes it's hard. We doubt that God's timing, right? It's like, remember, I was like, I should have started a month sooner. Why did I wait so long? Da. I'm like, yeah. As book hits the market, there's the Iran war going on, there is the entire Board of Peace going on, and then the 650 Fifth Avenue going. And I'm like, yeah, never mind. I'm sorry, Lord. You're right. You know the timing
Yeah.
because we need this book more than ever right now.
Yeah. Yes, and it could not be coming out at a better time, and your cover art couldn't be more perfect. I mean, I think this is the perfect illustration of what Islam represents to the world right now. It is a death cult. It's a political death cult. We see exactly what's going on in Europe right now, and we see this same poison starting to spread, this cancer in the United States. People look at the big examples of it: Epic City, New York, Dearborn, Michigan, but it's far worse than that, much more insidious, because even in states like North and South Carolina, they're building these Islamic campuses there. They are gradually taking territory here within the United States, planting their flag, and as we've seen in New York, now we've got the call of prayer getting blasted out there 5 times a day. They're taking over Central Park. They're taking over some of the 9/11 memorials for the firefighters. And this has to stop. We have to push back. This threat has to be destroyed once and for all and removed from our country. I don't know if Europe is savable at this point. I hope it is. But when they open their doors, it's like letting a vampire in. Once you invite them in and you let them within your borders, they continue to grow. At first, they play nice. They demand equal treatment. And then once they take over, we see exactly what's happening in London and in Paris and in several cities in Germany now. Once they have control, then they oppress everyone else who is not Islamic. This is always the goal. It's a global caliphate. So if you could, give us a quick rundown on your book. And then, guys, there is a link in the video description today to get this book on Amazon. This is important. If you guys want an autographed copy, go to Annie's website, liveuptofreedom.com. Let me get that back up on the screen here. And you can get one of the autographed copies she painstakingly signed yesterday. Spent the whole day signing all these books so they could be sent out. But you can go to her website, liveuptofreedom.com, get one there. And again, support all the work she's doing, all the hard work that went into the research here. And again, she is self-published. There's no company helping to promote or anything else. This is all on her. It's all on her effort. And again, this is the kind of work we really need to support. Somebody that's honest, that will tell you the truth about Islam, won't water it down, pretend, oh, it's just another religion. It's the religion of peace. That's got to end. We have to address the threat for what it is. Don't let them scare you just because they call you Islamophobic or racist or whatever else. Your phobia implies that it is an irrational fear. This is not an irrational fear. This is dealing with what this threat is in reality.
Exactly. First of all, thank you. And I should put a note for the for next 4 weeks. I only have 28 copies left to sign and send out. I'm not saying we'll run out permanently, but if you don't place your orders before those are gone, it's going to be a 3 to 4 weeks delay until I can start sending. But in the book, from page 220 until 236, that's 16 pages, are my notes. references, not to other books, not bragging, but I didn't necessarily use too many other books or other researchers, except the historical parts. I use Quran, Reliance of the Traveler, but most of what you see on my notes, which comes to apparently a total of 248 of them, majority of them are real life case studies of the Western countries from one court to another, not gossip, not reports, actual court cases that I have used in this book. They're court cases that either, ended up being watered down and give a deal to the criminals or not. But these are
Yes.
real court cases all the way from Canada to America. We head over to Europe. I have Germany. I have France. I have Italy. I have UK. I have Switzerland cases. This morning, I was on with Patrick Colbeck. Very kindly, he said, working with Annie, I know how precise she is. So I'm pretty sure when you read this book, there won't be a doubt left. I'll double that and say, yes, I made sure my personal experience is not in the book. It's not. You don't
Yeah.
find my story. You don't find my pain and agony. You find document after document after document at it with a portion at the end of each chapter that gives you practical countermeasures, meaning
Yes.
I have made it easy for you. If you care, you can actually take a step, not relying on your government, not relying on DOJ. No, you yourself have the steps to take that will not only stop what's happening, but also reverse portion of it. And
Yes.
that is one of the things that I'm very proud of because, yes, as Dr. Bill Warner honored me to forward this book for me, he mentions on his forward that he himself has read plenty of books on Islam and jihad, but none did offer any solutions. I took the
Mm-hmm.
time to make sure there is solution because we're all tired of hearing the problem. Yes, there's
Yeah.
a problem. Now what? This is your now what? This is where you get the solution. Every chapter has between 10 to 15 steps that you can take, and it won't take more than 5 minutes of your day. I'm
Yes.
not asking anybody to, arm up and go to battlefield. It is a different type of battlefield that I'm introducing to you. But there are
Yeah.
10 phases of jihad. 10. Michael, I remember originally when I was working on the outline of this book, even when I told you 10, you're like, 10 of them? I said,
Yeah.
10 of them. Go ahead.
Well, and again, you go through and explain this very well. And the other thing I like that you do is you break this down. You use their own words. You also have citations to the Quran where this comes from. Like, you're not a crazy person. You're not making this out of thin air. You're not basing it on the words of a few people. This is their holy books. These are the works. This is what their religion is based around. And we see that in action today in our world. The other thing that you have in here that I really like is your glossary of terms, because I think this simplifies things for people. There's a lot of terms we hear on media or we hear at one time, like taquillas. People probably understand what that is, but you define everything else in here too and lay it out so that people really understand exactly what's going on. Because part of the problem is this insidious duplicitousness of Islam, meaning they put on one face, they do another, and people believe, again, because of our media, they believe that they're just poor, weak people. They're being trampled upon. The aggression is always ignored. You do a great job taking that mask off and showing what the real goal is there, where they pretend to be weak till they are in a position where they are strong and they can kill their opponent.
Exactly, or convert them, because unfortunately, just to give a very complete image, every chapter, the book is broken into two categories, which is the classical jihad and then the modern jihad. Now, because I called it modern doesn't mean it's not based in Quran or Hadith or Sharia. It's just a practice format that I have changed. Or I have addressed under modern versus classical. For example, classical wouldn't have any kind of propaganda jihad because there was no social media or mainstream media, right?
Yeah.
So, but I still show that Muhammad practiced that because he started sending letters, handwritten letters, with his people to kings of the area to try to convert them through propaganda through that letter. It was a smaller portion. It has expanded to a bigger portion now as a modern. But point is, we go over the definition of that jihad, then the sources inside Islam. And then that's where, again, I think makes this book a little different because I actually bring up Muhammad's practice of that jihad.
Yes.
Because it's normally argued you misunderstood Quran. Well, that tafsir doesn't apply to Wahhabis. That one doesn't apply to Sunni. So keeping that in mind, not only I covered that argument, but I'm also like, okay, your prophet did it. What about that? How are you going to
No.
argue that? How are you going to argue that Muhammad did it? Quran said it. Muhammad did it. Muftis tafsired it or translated it and took fatwas out of it. And then today we see it happening. It is very hard. As you know, I have friends who are sometimes concerned. They're like, you're already got a lot of heat from Iran for reporting and all that. Do you really need the heat to come from this book? I'm like, yeah, I do. It was winter time when I released it. I need the heat. Like, what do you want me to do? Sit back and not release such a book because I might get heat or I might get even attacked, like literal attack? There is no time left, Michael. You know very well that we don't have much time. Regardless of what's happening in the Middle East and what's happening with Iran, which, by the way, that on its own is an episode of 3 hours to discuss and analyze and understood. But regardless, inside America, we're about to hit midterm. If you read my political jihad, you'll be like, whoa, yeah, midterm's coming. Political jihad is hitting us pretty hard.
Yeah, well, and look in Europe, 10 years ago, they weren't near the position they are today. And so it doesn't take that long to completely change the culture of a country and to put themselves in a position of power where they're now dictating terms in a lot of these countries. I mean, you got people in the UK worried about the Islamic vote in the upcoming election. We just saw what happened in Manchester, where they got out to defeat the Reform candidate, put a Green Party person in instead, and they even bailed on labor, and it's because that pushes their agenda forward. They came together, and now they are controlling that. And this is the same thing that we're already starting to see it here. But we have to be at a point where another 10 years, we're talking about how we push the threat out of the country, not how the cancer has spread. And it isn't just New York and a few cities here; that it's every major city in every state, and they're gradually gaining control over the whole country.
Exactly. And to answer Go Away on Substack, I already have a Substack Go Away that I covered halal subject, and I did include name of the major halal certification companies inside America and Canada. I think I mentioned Canada too, but if you want to know those names, just read that. Halal. The title is Halal, the Financial Trojan Horse, I think is, or something like that. But I have already covered halal. And yes, that is part of the financial jihad that's going on. 10 years, we're already 8 years into that 10 years, Michael.
Yeah.
If you look from, let's look back quickly to 2018. It was the first time that Americans officially celebrated the first Muslim Woman Congress member, remember? Which I remember my very first reaction was, which one is the first? Because there are two at the same time. So I need the exact second that was announced so I know which one of them is first. And I kept pressuring Americans of, look, they are more proud of the history they made for Islam than for America. Why are you not catching that?
Yeah.
But that was 2018. You look from 2018 to today with over 282 Sharia obeying Muslim representation across America. We're already 8 years into that 10 years. 2028, the general election is where, we could see what they're witnessing in Europe.
Yeah, the infiltration is well on its way. And if we don't get our act together here, that is going to be us in a few more years. You guys can forget about any sort of a takeover in Congress or anything else, because once they're there and in power, they will use our rules, our laws, our courts against us to expand their power and expand their grasp and to insulate themselves and protect them from their crimes. Well, continuing to pretend they're weak. Oh, this is a hate crime. Somebody finally, protected themselves from us. It's a hate crime. That we'll see the same manipulation here, and it'll already be too late. Like there is a point where we cross a threshold of no return. We have to make sure we don't get to that point, because we're speeding towards it, just like Europe is right now. Like, I really don't know if you can save Europe at this point, or if it's just too far gone.
Well, there is definitely a documented record of me on many interviews, my own show, my own Substack, constantly saying Yes, I can sit here and blame Islam. I can even blame some of the Muslims, but I'm going to go ahead and hold my fellow Americans accountable for this issue. Let me read something from the chapter 10 of the book. It's called Betrayal Jihad, guys. Apparently, it's been it's two out of 10 that's hitting everybody pretty hard. One of them is missionary jihad. The second one is betrayal jihad, where it goes, betrayal jihad is the front no one wants to name because it indicts not the jihadists but the kafirs, the non-believers. This is the jihad carried out not by Muslims but by non-Muslims. It's the only jihad that Islam does not have to build, and the only jihad Islam does not have to fund. It grows in the cultural and moral weakness of the host society itself, driven by the oldest human instinct, survival, even at the price of betrayal. There is no Islamic text commanding non Muslims to help Islam. There is no doctrine instructing infidels to dismantle their own defenses. Yet, history shows that when a civilization loses confidence, its people will protect the force they fear instead of the culture they inherit. And that's what we've been doing. That's what Europeans did. How
Yep.
many people defend Muslims in Fight With Me and You, Michael?
Yeah. Well,
You just said it. The poor Muslims, the poor this. We are protecting the very system that is trying to destroy us because we think we're going to survive the final battle with them. Because we think if we don't provoke them, they're not going to come for us. We are at fault. We're just as much at fault as the jihadist.
mhm. Yeah.
Wake up.
Yeah. Yeah, when you better wake up quick because the clock's ticking. This Red Green Alliance is extremely obvious here. Joe, you and I were talking earlier this morning. I always call it the pro-Hamas wing of the Democrat Party, but this is a reality now. They are out there to defend these jihadis. They even try to justify these guys that just threw the bombs in New York up there by Gracie Mansion. They first of all, ignored the fact that the protest group out front, they tried to call them a bunch of white supremacists. A lot of them were people protesting Mamdani and all the Muslim outreach. A lot of them were from Iran, people that were protesting because the left is out there trying to prop up the Ayatollah, spare the country right now. But again, it's this dishonesty that you always treat them as victims. They're always victims. They're never the aggressor, even when they're throwing bombs at people. Oh, these were just a couple of kids from Pennsylvania or up there in New York because it was a nice weekend. That isn't true. We know who these people are. We should know who these people are. We can't keep denying reality or we are going to lose this country. And this is up on Amazon. Again, you guys can order Annie's book right there, right now. Get her on. I think you're already on one of the bestsellers list, right?
Yes, I was actually just looking the screenshot. I'm like, that was from the first moment. But right now on Amazon, we are number 1 new released on History of Religions altogether.
Nice.
Number 5 on History of Islam. And yeah, we're building up. But if I could ask for anybody who has already ordered it, it will be a tremendous help if you would write a review on Amazon for it. The more reviews we get, the more the search results will come up. And if you haven't ordered it, pick up a copy. And then when you read it, make sure to leave a review. Because again, those reviews are what will tell Amazon. I would like to have some good reviews before the jihadists come calling me Islamophobe on review section. I have no control over it. I'm like, I don't want to get the negative reviews before I get the good reviews. So please take a moment to write a review, even if it's just a one-liner, even if it's just a couple of stars, anything. Let's build up some positive reviews because trust me, I have a feeling that few organizations are organizing to hit my Amazon page right now with some
I'm sure
pretty accusatory reviews of Islamophobia and racism and all that. So I appreciate it if you leave some reviews.
Yeah, make sure you leave a review, leave a positive 5-star review so that Amazon will promote this and get this to more people. And if you can afford it, get copies for your friends, for your families, or get one extra copy, get a loaner copy. This is an idea I heard from somebody else about a week ago I think is brilliant. They were telling me they bought a book and then they bought an additional copy as a loaner to hand out to loan to friends and family and other people so they could read it and at least get the message from the book, at least get the material. Now, in this case, it was something totally unrelated, but still like a brilliant idea. because it is expensive right now. Times are hard. If you can't afford, 5 copies to hand out to all your family members, whoever else, get one as a loaner, get one for yourself. And again, this is a message America needs to hear and the world needs to hear before it's too late. We have to stop this death cult before they do any more damage. Sorry, go ahead. I thought you were about to say something.
No, I was going to say, I would say, if you can afford it, get a copy for your chief of police and get a copy for your legislator, local,
Yeah.
not federal. Your
And your
local,
priest or
whomever is your
pastor.
guy. Yes, that would be good. I'm a little hesitant there. It's like, I don't know if pastors are, most of the pastors are not ready to read this yet, but I mean, I pray that they do get ready. But it's, again, because of midterms coming up, I feel like legislators and law enforcement, they would need to have the information. And again, I emphasize, this is not my story. This is not my autobiography. The only time you see my name is as the author. That's it. There is I didn't even use any of my own real life experience as case studies. I stayed unbiased. It is documented based on anything except me and my life experience. Yes, I used a lot of my resources growing up of this verse and that part of reliance and that specific hadith I was told, but I have stayed clear of muddying this book because it is important to be factual, not allow
Yes.
anyone to say you inserted your own feelings to it. It's a documentation that can be used. Again, you can take it to your city hall meeting, you can take it to your school meeting. There's
Yeah. Did you just freeze? This isn't about your personal experience with Islam. This is about this dark influence, this this death cult that's destroying Europe, destroying the Middle East, and coming here to America, and why we need to be vigilant and put the brakes on it. Can you hear me? Or are you still frozen? Hang on, guys. Let me go check this out, because I do want to get her thoughts, too, before we go on a couple other breaking stories that we have. Oh, she's gone. Let's see if she pops back on here in a second. This is clearly the deep state or Iran trying to prevent her from speaking, because there is actually some hacking going on this morning, too, with the Blaze. I saw they're down, and a number of other websites are having issues. I don't know if this is something based out of the IRGC is controlling or not, but something is definitely going on. Sorry, 1 second. Let me see if she's messaged me on here, and then I'll at least pull up our next headline, because that's really what I want to get her thoughts on. And you're back. They tried to take you out, but now you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. My entire system just rebooted itself. I think my computer is as tired as I am.
I believe it.
I'm gonna die now. I'm done.
Well, I did see, too, what I brought up while you were out was they're actually, this morning, they're hacking the Blaze, and a couple other news websites this morning were getting knocked out once again. But I do want to get your thoughts on a couple of these stories, because I know you've got limited time before you got to run off this morning. That, one of the things we're seeing over the last few days, Pentagon reportedly preparing to send 3,000 airborne troops to the Middle East. Obviously, there's people freaking out about boots on the ground and everything else. Personally, I think this is more of a threat than anything else. This is because, if you're going to say that you're going to do something, you have to also have the means to carry out that threat in order to get a response. Otherwise, it's just an empty threat and nobody cares.
Well, my thought process is, I don't know. I don't know if it's part of the bluff, let's call it, because we've done that. But
Yeah.
I don't believe this is going to be a boots on the ground the way you would think. First of all, there is the battle. So let's look at it this way: we were at war with Iran as a country, but then at some point it shifted from U.S. point of view. The war went from fighting Iran and the mullahs to oopsie daisy. We gotta get rid of the glitch here. It's not like we weren't aware of the Strait of Hormuz glitch. We knew, but we just weren't sure how much it's going to pressure us. I think this is more of let's be ready if we need to deliver on, we're going to control Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
There is a difference. And again, for a lot of people, it may not be, especially if you're inside America, you don't have that uniqueness of geography. Iran does. We don't need to put boots on the ground of the border of Iran to control Strait of Hormuz. We don't. So I understand the concerns. I understand the freakouts. But if there is a boots on the ground scenario, it is more of controlling a Strait of Hormuz rather than going inside Iran. That is my understanding of putting everything together from last 10 days. That's where we're at. And again, that is if, not that I'm happy about it, but my opinion doesn't matter right now. That is if we don't come to an agreement with the new government we have installed inside Iran. We could call it a shadow government inside Iran. If we don't come to the agreement with them, then yes, I think the troops are there to take control of the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other rumors circulating too about what may transpire next within the country. Some people are saying that people will be back out in the streets soon, that there's even a plan already to seize control of the majority of the country by the people. But we'll have to see what happens next as things unfold. Because some of this too is just the propaganda war too. It's both sides getting their points out and trying to prevent chaos in stock markets. Obviously, energy is affecting a number of countries already. So some of it is just about messaging so that people don't panic, especially unnecessarily, and make the whole situation worse for all of us. Iran rejects U.S. diplomatic push to expand strikes on Israel and Gulf states. And Iran ramps up threats as tide turns against IRGC. So within the country, we're hearing things, people are starting to stand up, rise up en masse against the IRGC. We've heard that they're sharing targeting data with the U.S. and with Israel. Now checkpoints are being destroyed, leadership. I even saw a story this morning where now IRGC and Basiji are dressing up as Red Crescent workers. So in case they're killed, they can pretend we struck an aid operation instead of what we really hit. And again, that's the propaganda victory right there. And our media is happy to hand it to them.
Yes. So let's break this down again. My fellow Americans, you need to look at this process in the most never looked at point before. I know it's complicated for you. I know it's hard, but I need you to trust me when I say this is not a straightforward war like we had with Iraq and Afghanistan. Reason, first of all, with Iraq and Afghanistan, Israel wasn't involved. But this one, Israel is. And we are drifting as far as objective goes. So you will see a heavier attack on Israel. Yes, you absolutely will. But that doesn't mean we're not making progress with Iran. I need you to start separating U.S. and Israel at this point. It's sad to say, but it is the truth. U.S. and Israel are not fighting the same front anymore. They're not. And they have made it very publicly obvious. Tulsi Gabbard already said objectives are different. Trump has said it. Bibi has said it. IDF has said it. So I'm not giving you some secret I achieved hacking into their system. It's public information if anybody is paying attention and listening. So because the objectives are different and now we're fighting two different fronts, you got to separate U.S. and Israel at this point. With that being said, Israel is going to be under heavy attack no matter where we go with our negotiation. As far as IRGC situation, yes, I warned about this a while ago. I said, get ready, as you're going to hear more about the schools and hospitals and public and civilians, because IRGC has already started using the human shield method. That's Islamic. That's known. Everybody does it. Hezbollah done it. Hamas done it. So that's what IRGC is doing. However, inside the country, as far as leadership, let's call it, yes, the leadership is having a very big gap right now between the mullahs and IRGC. Reason IRGC is pushing to break the rules, Sharia, to place the next leader, and mullahs aren't willing to bend. So that is going on inside Iran, which is great, except the middleman is gaining momentum with US to become the next power. No matter how you look at it, none of these outcomes are going to be good for Iranian people. I want to be very clear on that. But that is secondary to the issue of the discussion because we're talking US. We are making progress with the new regime we want to put in place. Now, do we have what it takes to convince Israel to back off, to convince the mullahs to step down and get our candidate in? That is a whole story for next week. There is
Yeah.
no way we can have that guesstimate today.
I can't really see the mullah stepping down.
They might have to, Michael. Let me tell you why they might have, even if it's temporarily. Remember what happened with Khomeini, the original supreme leader. He accepted exile from King of Iran. Remember, he accepted exile to survive enough to come back. So the mullahs might have no choice but to accept the stepping down, not necessarily from government, but a stepping down from top leadership to survive. They know this is their last chance to somehow bounce back like Khomeini did, but they know if they don't, not through US, by the way, through Israel, they will be done. So they might hide behind US offer to survive Israel. And that's the problem when you drift an objective, by the way. That's where a story gets sad.
Yeah. Well, I know you've only got a couple minutes left before you've got to run. So is there any message you want to leave our audience with? And what's the best place to find your book again?
Best place to get the book is actually liveuptofreedom.com if you want a signed copy, or just go to Amazon for Kindle or paperback. I do apologize, we don't have hardcover for this book yet. And as for those who ask for audiobook, I'm working on it as fast as I can, but you can only imagine I have 5 minutes a day to record any audio. But I get that as soon as I can. liveuptofreedom.com or Amazon. Last message is, again, try to remember 2 major points. Regardless of if you like who's our government or not today, that plays no role when it comes to we the people. Why do I say that? As long as we pay attention to what's in front of us, as long as we listen to the analysis we hear from everybody and use our own discernment to understand where things are going, we're going to be fine because we're not being carried away by propaganda, narrative, or lies. We are aware. And sometimes during times like today, between the war and the midterms and what's happening in New York City, the only thing you got is to understand what's happening. If you get confused on what's happening, you could lose a lot of, lack of a better term, hope. Hold on to hope while it comes from your discernment. Find sources that can prove and show you receipt for what they're claiming, and absolutely turn off your any alphabet soup mainstream media. That's all I got for today.
Bingo. Well, again, I want to thank you for all the hard work you've done, all the sacrifices you made, and your effort to help educate people here in America and around the world. I do think most people do not understand just how insidious and deadly this threat is, even though the evidence is right in front of them. But you really, again, you use their own words. You pin it right back on them. There is no denying what's going on here. We just have to wake people up to this. I think part of the problem is most people are not used to this level of evil, that you're willing to ascribe that to an individual, a serial killer or some other kind of like madman that does something or another. You're willing to say, oh yeah, this person's evil. But when you're pointing at an entire, it's not even a religion, it's a political system, it's a death cult. But when you're pointing at something like that, most people are just not willing to accept it, but they have to. That is the truth. That is the reality. And until we do live in the real world, this threat will continue to plague humanity and destroy nations and potentially destroy the world.
Amen. Agreed, 100%.
Well, thank you again for joining us today. Again, guys, make sure you go get this book. Go follow Annie, Live Up to Freedom on Twitter. Go to liveuptofreedom.com. Get yourself an autographed copy of this book. We're going to take a quick break here from our sponsors, and I'll be right back to wrap the show up. And again, Annie, thanks for joining us today. We'll have you back again soon.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, stay with us. We'll be right back with more.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my artist studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com.
finish this painting, but I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfthestudio.com.
All right, guys, thank you for staying with us. And again, best way to support our program, all the great programs on Ex American News, is by supporting our sponsors. And a great way to do that is to support Annie and all the hard work that she does. Another way to do that, besides buying her book, if you haven't already done that, is go to lutfstudio.com and pick up a unique, one-of-a-kind, handmade piece of art. Again, sure to become a treasured family heirloom. We don't have much time left here, so I do want to sneak in a last couple stories here before we wrap up. And sorry, I forgot to fix something on this. And this one is just hilarious. This is peak liberalism right here. California gubernatorial debate canceled because only white candidates qualified for the event. So apparently California has a racism problem because the entire state, the top slate of 5 candidates here, and I could have sworn it was 6 when I read this earlier. Oh, no, 6. Yeah, sorry. My screen's cut off. I couldn't quite see Swalwell there on the edge. But because their top 6 contenders are all white, apparently it is racist, and you cannot have a debate. So, because Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton are leading the way right now, 2 Republicans, and this is my favorite part about what's going on in California right now, is they set this trap, excuse me, of using jungle primaries, as they're called, to try to prevent there being Republicans even on the ballot in a lot of races. So the way this works is when they have a primary, instead of there being split primaries like there are in most states where the Republicans run over here, the Democrats run over here, and maybe have some independents somewhere, and then you vote for whichever side you're on, or sometimes you infiltrate, go to the other side, make sure they get a really bad candidate. But instead of having a division like that, everybody's in the same primary, and the top 2 contenders, that's who ends up on the ballot. And in places like LA County and other areas of California is filled with left-wing moonbats, they will end up with 2 Democrats on the ballot because those are going to be the top 2 contenders. So they thought this was a way to control the outcome and make sure they got somebody that represents these leftist socialist communists that are infiltrated the Democrat Party and taken over. Well, it ain't working out for the gubernatorial race. Again, with Hilton and Bianco at the top, they may end up with 2 Republicans on the ballot. Swalwell, a lot of the Democrats are turning on him. He may be out of the race soon because, he doesn't have a property. He doesn't actually live in California anymore. Shouldn't even be in Congress. But of course, the left doesn't have to play by the rules. That's only our side that has to do that. And I kind of see this this circus that's going on with the gubernatorial race, just an extension of Gavin Newsom and the Democrats' campaigns for president right now. Because make no mistake, that's really what they're doing right now is Pritzker. I just blanked out on the name of the other person I'm trying to think of. And then obviously one of my favorite other tools, Gavin Newsom. A lot of them are already out there. They're really running for president right now. They're not running for whatever other office or just out giving speeches or anything else. This is a prelim to their presidential campaign. Report, Democrats running for president in 2028 are emphasizing their childhood traumas. Yes, that's right. All these white, wealthy, rich liberals are pretending somehow they had it tough growing up. They had a tough life. And I'm sure there's aspects of it that probably weren't easy. But again, they're trying to run on their trauma because they're just like you. But in reality, they're not relatable. But they have to pretend. But again, they have their allies in the media propping up this idea and propping up this message. Otherwise, it's it's transparent. You can see right through it. But when half our media is just totally dishonest and one-sided, it's easy for them to lie to the American people. We also do need to be on the lookout for things. I keep talking about this. I know there's a lot of people that disagree with me, but we have to be really do need to be concerned about the low turnout in these elections. In Illinois, they were down over 30% of voters showing out for this last primary up there a little over a week ago, 8 days ago, actually. So a 30 to 33% decrease in Republican voter turnout. That's not a good sign. And that's also what just happened down here in Florida. Just in, Democrat Emily Gregory flips Florida State House district that includes Mar-a-Lago. This should never have happened. So I read through a couple of these stories this morning. That district specifically at the state level was considered to be R plus 11. So a 11-point advantage for Republicans. But they didn't show up at the polls. Once again, the same thing we saw in Texas in several races too. that turnout overall is down, and that is not good. Now, the whole area, and this is what you'll also see in some stories, like for the federal level, that district is an R+19. So why can't we get our voters out? Why are people not showing up the polls? And again, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but I think it's a lot of dissatisfaction with what's going on right now, especially the lack of arrest, the lack of justice, the fact that DOJ is continuing prosecutions on a lot of these school board parents and other people. It's got to stop. And I don't know what we do to correct that, but this is something we're going to. Unless the DOJ, let me rephrase that. Unless the DOJ gets its act together and we start seeing some actual arrests, not just, releasing strongly worded letters and investigations and having hearings that don't result in any action. Unless that changes, I do think people are just going to sit on their hands. They're going to stay home, keep their butts planted there, and be like, you know what? We went out there, we voted for you, and we haven't gotten anything that we voted for. We haven't got the majority of it. And I know there's a lot of people on the right. They're like, oh, but look at all the other things that Trump's accomplished. Well, the younger voters don't care about that. They don't care about any of these international issues. They don't care about Venezuela. What they care about are fixing the problems here at home. They care about the infiltration of the federal government. They care about how poorly this giant debacle with the release of the Epstein files, the lack of prosecution there, and the fact that we got, Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, and the FBI pretending there were no crimes committed. Oh, we just don't. They traffic the children to no one. All the rest of this, well, we just can't figure anything out from it. If anybody finds any crimes in there, just let us know. It's got to stop. We got to start taking all these things seriously, or we are going to lose the midterms because voters are just going to stay at home. And I don't know what we do to get through to people to get some kind of change there. But I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to get scared that it's a little bit too late. Last thing I want to bring up here before we wrap up for the day, and that is this story that kind of started developing yesterday afternoon, but now we've got Mike Lee and Anna Paulina Luna out there sounding the alarms on this. So yesterday in the afternoon, people started celebrating, oh, Thune's finally caved. He's going to pass the SAVE Act. They're going to use reconciliation to do it. But we have to remember about the Senate parliamentarian and previous sabotage where we've had things included in bills that suddenly, I believe it's a woman, she said that we have to remove, that these don't qualify because, again, it's only supposed to be for budgetary issues. That's where you're supposed to be able to come together, hash things out if there's slight differences between the House and the Senate version of the bill. But, again, this is more political theater. Thune knows this. So Thune is making the bet, or probably has already talked to the parliamentarian and knows that if they push this through reconciliation, then anything useful in the SAVE Act is going to get stripped out. Maybe they'll require people to show an ID before they go to the polling locations. But if they don't have to prove citizenship before being registered to vote or anything else that's included in this bill, then what's the point? It doesn't really accomplish anything. We still need to tackle the bigger problems. That's cleaning the voter rolls, banning the electronic voting machines, and putting in real oversight. So when there are elections being stolen out from under us, something can actually be done about it. Guys, we are about out of time for today, but I do want to thank you guys for joining us. Once again, please go to liveuptofreedom.com, get yourself a signed copy of Annie's new book, The Architecture of Jihad, or if you're not interested in the signed copy, go to Amazon.com right now and get yourself a printed copy, download the Kindle version, get one for your friends, get one for your police chief, your elected officials, get a copy for, I think, your pastors. We really need to wake up our churches because they can't just continue to be in denial of this threat and pretend that Islam is just, any other religion, like a different denomination of Christianity or Buddhist monks or, maybe Hindus, whatever. There's a big difference. And I'm not real concerned if I see, Buddhists walking down the street or whatever. They're probably not going to self-detonate. I'm not really concerned with Sikhs or Hindus or whatever else. They're not going around the world terrorizing people that don't agree with them. They're not going to villages in Africa slaughtering the Christians or anything like that. It is always Islam that is the aggressor. And I know they like to point back to the Crusades and pretend that happened yesterday. That was hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And even then, the Crusades were justified. But that's a whole nother episode for a whole nother time. But guys, again, I want to thank you for staying with us. Annie, thank you for joining us today. Guys, please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to see. And we'll be back again tomorrow with even more.